The story of Atlantis begins not in the distant past, but in the mind of one of history's greatest thinkers, Plato, the Athenian philosopher whose writings laid the foundations of Western philosophy. Around 360 BCE, in two of his later dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, Plato introduced the world to Atlantis. But he did so not as a storyteller, but as a philosopher with a purpose. Plato claimed that the account of Atlantis was not his own invention, but a tale passed down from the legendary Athenian lawmaker Solon, who had traveled to Egypt roughly 150 years earlier. According to the story, Solon was shown ancient records by Egyptian priests in the city of Sais, who described a mighty civilization that existed 9,000 years before Plato's time. This civilization, they said, was Atlantis, a vast empire beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the ancient name for what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. In Plato's account, Atlantis was a marvel of civilization. It possessed unmatched wealth, advanced engineering, and political structure. The capital city was a masterpiece of urban planning, concentric rings of land and sea, with bridges, canals, and towering temples. It was a land blessed with abundant resources: gold, silver, and a mysterious metal called orichalcum, said to shine like fire. The people of Atlantis lived in harmony with nature, governed by wise kings who traced their lineage to Poseidon, the god of the sea. But Plato's narrative was not just a romanticized vision of a golden age. It was also a cautionary tale. According to the Critias, the Atlanteans, once noble and just, became corrupt and greedy. As their power grew, so did their hubris. They sought to dominate other lands, including ancient Athens, which Plato described as the ideal state: modest, virtuous, and self-reliant. In a dramatic reversal, it was Athens, not Atlantis, that stood firm and repelled the invaders. Then, in a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis was destroyed by earthquakes and floods and sank beneath the ocean. It's important to understand that Plato was writing during a time of profound political and philosophical reflection. Athens had recently suffered defeat in the Peloponnesian War, and Plato had become deeply critical of the moral decay he saw in his society. The story of Atlantis served as an allegory, a comparison between the disciplined philosophical ideal and the corrupt, decadent empire. For many scholars, that makes it clear Atlantis was not meant to be taken as literal history, but as a moral parable. Yet not everyone agrees. There are elements in Plato's writing that suggest he believed, or at least wanted others to believe, that the Atlantis account had a factual basis. He presents the story with extraordinary detail, geographical, political, and historical, and goes out of his way to emphasize its authenticity. In Timaeus, he writes, "This tale, though strange, is certainly true, having been attested by Solon, the wisest of the 7 sages." This ambiguity has led to centuries of debate. Was Plato weaving a deliberate fiction? Was he passing down a corrupted oral tradition? Or did he know more than he let on? By the 1st century, Sea Atlantis was already being treated by many Roman writers as a symbolic or metaphorical story. The philosopher Proclus, however, believed it to be real. During the Middle Ages, interest in the legend faded, but it roared back to life during the Age of Exploration, when new continents and sunken islands sparked a wave of speculation. By the 19th and 20th centuries, Atlantis had become a cultural phenomenon appearing in novels, pseudoscience, esoteric teachings, and nationalist propaganda. Still, beneath the layers of myth and reinterpretation lies a core question. Could Plato have been drawing on real, ancient memories of a pre-Greek civilization? Some researchers point to the destruction of Thera, modern-day Santorini, around 1600 BCE, when a massive volcanic eruption shattered the Minoan world, a highly advanced maritime culture with grand architecture, centralized power, and sudden disappearance from history. Others suggest links to ancient Tartessos in southern Spain, or the Bronze Age civilizations of North Africa. There's also the possibility that Plato, like many thinkers of his time, had access to now lost knowledge fragments of prehistory preserved in Egyptian, Mesopotamian, or Minoan records. His specific reference to the date 9,000 years before his time is often dismissed as symbolic. Yet some wonder if it reflects a real, though misunderstood, time frame or even a cultural memory stretching back to the end of the last ice age when sea levels rose dramatically. What we know for certain is this: the idea of Atlantis did not originate in myth or folklore. It began in a philosophical dialogue grounded in the intellectual and political landscape of classical Athens. Whether Plato invented the story to make a point, borrowed it from Egyptian tradition, or stumbled upon an echo of lost history, his words have endured for over 2,000 years. Atlantis was born in philosophy, but it would soon escape it, growing into something far larger than even Plato could have imagined.